Hello and welcome to At the 55, your home for USports football. Me and Tom are back on the mics, bringing you our mid-season check-in. Where we're going to bring you our top 10 list of quarterbacks, go through our top 10 list of all USports teams, and have conversations about all that and so much more. But first, Tom, how the heck you doing, my friend?
I'm doing better. I'm doing better. It's taken some time, relaxed a little bit, kind of settled into some stuff, and getting back to the focus, which is our Canadian athletes in our Canadian game. So I'm doing much better than what I was when last our listeners heard us.
Yeah, amazingly, Tom, we're wearing the exact same outfits that we were on the podcast yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever you're listening to this. And as always, whenever you're listening, wherever you're listening or watching, thank you so much for supporting us and for supporting the home for U Sport football. Let's spare no expense in diving into the action, where we're going to go through our top 10 quarterback list, starting 10, going all the way up to 1, and just sort of discussing why they made it into that slot there. Tom, would you like to boldly announce your 10th best quarterback this year?
Why not? Let's kick things off because I'm pretty sure I got somebody different than you do. At my number 10 spot, quarterback for the Alberta Golden Bears, Eli Hetlinger.
Not on my list. Okay,
Mhm.
Tom, speak your piece on young Eli.
I've really liked everything that I've saw from Eli going into this year. I mean, pulling up his stats, he's got, oh, where are we? Here we go. 97 completions, a 68% completion setting, 1,158 yards, seven touchdowns, only three interceptions on a team where they're obviously 0-4 as it stands right now in the Can West and struggling in this regard. Having Eli as the constant professional in this sense, I think he's doing a lot of good things for this offense and this team and keeping them in that relevant space, despite playing against some of the best defenses that U Sports has all happening in Can West and having gone up against some of those big opponents and still putting up those numbers. So to me, Eli deserves that number 10 spot.
Okay, I don't hate it at all. And we kind of talked a bit beforehand as we were both putting together our lists of how much of individual success, team success, and the sort of legacy of just what we know these players can do was something worth considering in this. And so, frankly, I think I'm coming at you with a 10th player, my 10th player, that I don't think you're going to have on your list either. I'm sliding in Queen's own Alex Vreeken at the number 10 spot here. I
Ooh.
think when you look at the obvious success that team's been able to have, the competitiveness they've been able to put up against two of the best teams in the whole country in Laurier and Western. Yes, obviously, Jared Kasari is what makes that offense go. But I think what's given them the ability to be a consistently top 10 team, and I'm curious to see where we're going to slot them in our own top 10s. I'm certain we both have them in there. I think ultimately what's made them that special is what he's shown so far this year. Yes, have there been spots where we want to see a few more things or he needs to clean up, a few balls here and there? Absolutely. But in the totality of what Queens has been able to do offensively with Kasari, but then Vreeken being able to spread it out to all his other weapons is what makes that offense one of the best offenses there is in all of U Sports and certainly in the OUA. Am I correct, Tom, in thinking though you didn't have Vreeken on your list?
That is correct.
Okay, well then let's move on to number 9, Tom. Do we want to do it snake order or do you want to go back to you?
Let's go snake order.
All right, snake order coming in at number 9. We're heading out to Manitoba. I'm putting Jackson Tuchinski on the list. First of all,
Woo-hoo.
is he on your list, Tom?
He is not.
He's not. Okay. Now, all right, here's the deal. By then, this is very much one of, again, we were going to have a discussion of how teams are playing compared to their records. And Manitoba, as a product of how good Can West football is playing vastly above where their record is right now. They've been in so many competitive games, taking out Saskatchewan, throughout, whatever about the fact that it's that coin flip of the ending, and his numbers alone have not been stellar. But what makes Manitoba so special offensively this year is what they're doing on the ground. And I hate to talk about Carlton on this podcast of all podcasts, but going back to that piece on what I think made Carlton's rushing attack come alive last year was the fact that Elijah Barnes had that dual threat component. And we certainly know Jackson Tuchinski is one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in how he can move it with his feet, how he can throw off platform. And you add in Braden Stubbs is clearly one of the best running backs in Manitoba's program history, one of the best we have here. That big O line But to me, what gives that team an opportunity to frankly go into anybody's house in the Can West and possibly take them out as a live dog to win a Hardy Cup this year, if they get the wins, like this is the crazy thing about it, they still need to get into that big dance. To me, it comes down to Chinsky. He makes that whole offense come alive.
Yeah, I love the pick. I certainly think that he has the capabilities for that. I just personally haven't seen enough from him in this year to really crown him that. At my number 9 spot, I have Justin Quirion from the
Oh,
Bishops Gators at number 9. At 97 completions, 67% completion percentage, 1,348 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. I know that's a getting up there. I've really loved everything that I've seen from him, especially in the AUS as it stands, where it seems like the running game is really not effective whatsoever here. Bishops being as impressive as they are really showcases to me that he's been doing some good things here. However, that loss to St. Mary's and being completely shut down in that keeps him from being any higher up on my list personally. So I've got him at number 9.
I have him in at 6. And in large
Ooh.
part, you know, I won't say too much more about it. Thus far, yes, St. Mary's shut them down quite effectively. And we already talked about it on the week 5 review pod. Silas being back for St. FX is able to outduel those St. Mary's Huskies and that great defense. Meanwhile, Quirion and his Gators only put up 20 on Acadia. But thus far, he's the reigning MVP of that league. And we're going to have a discussion about this later. So far, he's tracking to probably repeat. But again, I don't want you to necessarily give away anything on that end of things as well. So I give a bit of a nod from that standpoint as well. Possibly the best in his conference. I get it. Not all conferences are made equally. Reigning MVP. Don't talk about last year. How does that play into this year? But okay, I had him at 6. You had him in at 9. Tom, who do you have at 8?
The one and only Josh Jansen, quarterback for the Ottawa GGs at
8?
number
Number
8.
8? How
At
dare you? Okay, go
at
ahead.
at number 8. Well, yes, once again, we talk about the potential that this young man has. I've only ever seen that potential in his most recent game against the Laurier Golden Hawks. Everything else has been serviceable, but not been that upper echelon that we've come to expect. Why are you not producing like you did against Laurier, one of the top defenses in the country for the past 2 or 3 years, like this in every game? To me, there's something else that's happening here that keeps him from this outstanding effort that he has. I mean, he puts up a ton of yardage and some really impressive numbers, but then everything else, like we've seen, it was that like 200 yards, 200 yards, 200 yards in his other previous games, and does enough to get a couple of wins here, certainly, but not good enough for me to put him any higher.
I had him at number 4, Tom. Because,
Woo!
again, like, that Western game got out of hand by the numbers, relatively early, and they were obviously pushing to the very end. So I do think some of those numbers are inflated, but there's part of me that just looks at this guy and says, he does what he needs to do to win against teams that are sort of on the level with or above. But when he's going up, challenged by these top teams, I wish I had his numbers against Guelph in that playoff game last year, because obviously they almost knocked out Guelph at home in that first round playoff. It's just, to me, there's something about this kid as a gamer who, when the money's on the table, he hasn't, and this is where it's like, well, he hasn't pulled it off yet. So I totally get it. But there's something about him that partly him being a GG and me loving GG football. I have him at number 4. I don't know. I think just by all accounts, he is one of the best we have in the OUA this year. Um, I have at number 8, Keegan Hall.
Wow. I have him. Yeah, I have him at number 5.
You have him. Okay, so we're kind of flip flopping with those two. So this is where, again, how much do we play the legacy of it all? There's a big piece on Keegan being here. Frankly, I don't care about the record. I mean, first of all, you lost to Carleton last week, and we don't know his full status in terms of the injury and everything like that. To me, a large part, like the numbers on the year are not stellar for him. To me, the biggest thing beyond legacy, which is obviously we just know, like you hear his name and you say, well, he's got to be one of the best in there, but we can certainly say that about some guys that aren't on our lists either. To me, it's that aspect of I just haven't seen an offense be constructed around a player the way it's been like for Keegan. And I'm assuming he only has the 1 year with York. I don't know how long his master's program he is doing, but just in terms of the number of years he played at Mac already, where it's almost a shame we won't get to see uh and maybe I'm wrong on this. I would hope this to be the case of just saying, okay, we went through some of the growing pains and a very injured year, and the defense was in shambles. A second year of him being that maestro of the offense, calling it up, dialing it up to his desire as much as he desires. The team success again. I just I don't I just this team's been frustrating to follow this year. I don't put that on Keegan. He's still a top 10 quarterback, but I put mostly on a bit of the legacy and this the orchestration of his role with that offense.
Yeah, for those exact reasons, I've put him higher here because while yes, we saw Matt Lynn come in when Keegan went out for an injury against the Carleton game, and it is confirmed he did have a stinger. So that's what kept him out. He went through, I think he's actively going through concussion protocol to make sure just to dot their T's and cross their I's, as they say. But to really just make sure anything with a head injury, obviously we're taking full advantage of here. And while Matt Lynn, yes, he does put up some decent numbers and he throws for a few touchdown passes in that game as well. Anybody who watches that game can see that he really struggled in that because, like you mentioned, this is an offense surrounded by Keegan Hall. And not just that, but the entire, in my mind, the entire success of York relies on, like we mentioned, the offense being able to score points. And at times during the 4 or 5 games that we've watched York play, Keegan is seemingly willing the offense to go down the field, whether that's running himself, whether that's finding windows. He's doing everything he possibly can to legitimately put the entire team on his back. So for me, not getting the insane numbers that we saw at Mac puts him down a little bit, but yeah, I have him at number 5.
Can I guess who your number eight is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you
Sorry, number
said
7, right?
well, no. Did you? Oh, is it? Oh, wait, are you? Is it your turn on seven?
Yeah, you just went through 7, so it's my 7, right?
No, that was my eight. Keegan was my eight.
Oh, sorry. No, I did 8 and then you did 8.
I did. Oh, so I got to do seven then.
Yes, you got to do 7.
Okay, I feel like we might have the same one here. Going out to Saint FX, Salas Fagnon.
Not on my list.
No, did you not say you had two AUS quarterbacks? Oh, you only have one. I thought you said you had two. Okay. I thought we were maybe going to be in lockstep with that. Okay, like let's put it past the numbers on this one. Again, we're playing a bit of the legacy, former MVP of that league, and the piece on what this team is without him, even when they have an MVP running back in Malcolm Bussey and a league leader in rusher in Caleb Fogarty, it doesn't matter. If Silas isn't in there, this team doesn't go. If he's in there, they can be whether they're winning the Loney Bowl, they certainly should be in that game. And we again, I don't mean to. I feel like I'm probably going to contradict myself in how I rationalize this one way or the other. Where I still think about we were talking about it recently that 2023 UTEC Bowl with them in Saskatchewan, him going toe to toe with Mason Nias. I believe that being in Salas's MVP year, or maybe that was Malcolm's MVP. I guess that was Malcolm's MVP year because Quailion was 2024.
Yeah.
Fagnon might have been the year before that.
No. Anyway, I think it was. I think that was Fagnon's.
It was in
No,
2023.
yeah, whatever.
One
Doesn't
way,
matter.
yeah, one way or the other. And I know that a lot of this is going to come down to like, well, again, the difference between the conferences, so on and so forth. But just a guy who, when he's there with his team, a team that, and like Ben Harrington, Zachary Hood. So it's like not even just that it's a good running attack, that it's that like you have weapons in that passing attack. It doesn't go without him. And it's a team that could be in a national championship. So that's where I have him in at 7. He's not on your list. Again, I'm not terribly mad about that. I can see it in hindsight. I'm like, maybe I did put Keegan a bit low, but Fagnon in at the 7.
This one for me, I think you'll probably have much higher. La Tendresse Regimbold rounds out my number 7 spot for the McGill Redbirds.
You know, I told you I only have two RSEQ quarterbacks.
He's not on the list.
Wait a second. Keep going. Keep going.
Yes, so La Tendresse Regimbold, he is shown a marked improvement from last year, and even that breakout season last year. I saw really a lot of really great things from that. But to me, I would have kept him off of the top 10 list for quarterbacks purely because of how many times he's turning the ball over. He hasn't been. And in this most recent victory against Montreal, in talking with a few of the folks around the Montreal region and just RSEQ in general, the McGill team, and one of my favorite quotes is, we can't wait to see how McGill is going to beat McGill this year, because how many mistakes they would make and the turnovers that they would commit. And he hasn't been doing that. Now, what keeps him from being higher on my list because of this is because a lot of what he's been doing is the athletic ability of just being able to take off and run with it. So he's a great athlete, but a pure quarterback in that sense. And you can make the argument, well, running, and from that, it does make you a quarterback as well. But even in that victory against Montreal, he only throws for about 150 yards in the air, goes off for another 100 on the ground to make up for that. But I wouldn't consider him as the top echelon of quarterbacks, which is why I have him at number 7.
Upon looking at my list, I think I ultimately looked at sort of him and Jackson Tuchinski in a comparison, and I went with Tuchinski. I only have one RSEQ quarterback. Yeah.
Wow.
I okay. All right. Well, hey, we're having fun out here. Okay. So that was 7 for you. So you're up for 6. Who do you got?
Number 6, I have Scott Barnett.
Really?
Scott Barnett for the U of T Blues.
I shouldn't have made that noise, but continue.
Do you have him on your list?
No.
Uh, when you look at the production that this young man has had, 123 completions, 1,548 yards in 5 games, 9 touchdowns. You have to look at how incredible that is. Yes, he does have the 8 interceptions,
And
and yes, he was limited there, but you can't deny he's putting up 500, 400 yards of total passing offense against great teams in this regard. And yes, the U of T side, they only have one win in this regard. And yes, they've been limited and so far. But to me, this just goes to show the incredible capabilities that this young man has. And at one point in time, albeit, yes, it was 2 games ago, but we were seriously considering him being like, is he the front runner for the OUA MVP outright because of how the numbers looked? Now, he had to play against great defenses eventually, and that got exposed a little bit, sure. But to me, the production that we've seen from Scott Barnett, the fact that he is still leading the entirety in USports in passing yards, that means something to me, and that's why I have him at my number 6.
yeah, I obviously love like what he was able to do in those first couple of games. It's just like, and we keep talking about that whole piece on like the one trick pony-ness of it all, and the fact that it's not even like netting them wins, where it's like I don't know, it just didn't. I guess in my calculus of like what I'm thinking about with great quarterbacks, I just or the best quarterbacks. I mean, the talent obviously like it's there. It's just one of those things of like spoiler alert, like neither of us have Evan on our list, and he hasn't obviously by the numbers been like just killing it this year. But there's years where again he'll put up big numbers, and people are just saying, well, it's the system that he plays in, all this type of thing, which I always think is a load of you know what. Um, but so, anyways, that just didn't jump off for me with him. I had 6 for me was Quirion. We talked about that. I'll jump ahead to my 5th. I'm curious where you have this individual, though I know you were starting to soften on him a little bit. Noah Peltier?
Not on my list.
Not on the list. Man, okay. I I think just with how much this Regina Rams offense has stepped up this year, kind of as we talked about a little bit at first, thinking that like Shipley was really elevating St. Mary's with that defense. I just don't know how I could find a way to not have him on with the team success. The year he's putting together so far, by the numbers, just under 70% completion percentage, the 7 touchdowns to 1 interception. I love that. And just when you have a great team around you, he's just doing it's kind of similar to my Vreekin take, where it's like he might not necessarily be the very best quarterback and he's on a really good team. And maybe this is getting into that Evan Hillock sort of like relative kind of conversation. But again, we also do think that when Evan is on, he's also really good. team success. He's doing what he needs to do to pick up wins for them. He's not costing them like anything. It's not like an Achilles heel or anything. And it's a really special Regina team that, well, obviously saw them just get knocked off. They've been in tight ball games. Can West is an absolute wild, wild west of a conference. I have them there at 5.
Yeah, and I completely understand that. To me, he's battling already a certain uh doubt, I guess you could say, from last year that people said, he wasn't a good enough quarterback to really win those big games. And he proved a lot of them wrong. Obviously, they won a Hardy Cup, albeit on the back of a great defense and a run game, especially. But when you look at some of these games here, and yes, I was in the house for the UBC game where he goes off and he does a lot of really great things. To me, when you're in some of these really tight games and when you're in some of the biggest games, that really showcases what's going on here. And that last game against Saskatchewan, he goes 21 for 38, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 1 interception. Not exactly a great showing, and you could see it on the film. It's not a great showing. But even against the Alberta Golden Bears, who are 0-4 and have struggled, 14 for 18, 169 yards and 1 touchdown, not blowing the socks off because yes, they run a 30 defense and you want to run the ball, and Christian Katende and Marshall Erickson really go off here. But to me, that makes him more of a serviceable quarterback rather than we've got one of the best ever. We've got to get him the ball like some of the other guys on this list.
No, totally fair. Totally fair. I just think what he's doing in service of what they need is exactly what's made them one of the best teams
Mhm.
in U Sports this year. So anyhow, that's where I slotted him in there. Who do you have in at 5? Did we talk about your 5?
We talked about my five. I've got Keegan Hall at number five here, so I
Okay.
will jump up to my number four spot, Pepe Gonzalez.
Yeah.
With the way that he has come out onto the scene, yes, there was that controversy. Well, not even controversy, but they were going back and forth and how well is he performing, and he's going back and forth. Is he going to be the starting quarterback? He is the starting quarterback, and that starting quarterback led to a victory over the Laval Rouge et Or as a first year player. We talk about how incredible that Laval defense is and showcasing what they were able to do last year against Laurier in the Vanier Cup, and to have this young man really go off and do his thing. I mean, on the year, he's sitting at 75 completions, just under 70% completion rating, 1,136 yards passing, 10 touchdowns to albeit 3 interceptions, all of which came last week against the McGill Redbirds in that performance there. But still, I cannot overlook the outstanding capabilities to still produce in one of the most defensive heavy leagues that we have in the RCQ.
Yeah, I mean, this might be where I feel really like silly on not putting him onto my list. Part of me, because of how whatever that situation was with Canal Charles, sorry, what's
Mhm.
the other court? Canal Charles?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, in that first game they had, obviously the Laval game's tremendous, and then the loss to McGill. It's like an outstanding game in Laval, a game where he was. I don't know if it was injury. I don't know what the situation was when they started with Rakeem Canal. At first, so I was just like, at this point in the season, obviously super high highs. I don't even want to say the lows are super low, but I just felt like I kind of needed to see a little bit more. And because we don't have the legacy play as well to be able to say, we can look at a couple examples of quarterbacks of, where we see them pop off one year on that first year on the scene, and then maybe we have that regression a little bit. It's tough with a first year kid when it's not, to me, definitively, but you make a great point of just like obviously how strong the defenses are in that league. So regardless of that fact that he's going to be that it's impressive to state the least. Yeah, that might be one of the ones I'm missed the mark on the most. But so that was your 4.
Hmm.
So is it me for number 3?
It's you for number four now.
Cal Wither.
At four.
Oh, 3. I had Josh Jansen was my 4. Cal Wither,
Okay, got
number
it.
3.
Also my number three.
Hey, there we go. I feel like the top 3 will it'll be interesting to see where we align. I mean, look, we can say what we want about the weapons he has around him, being put into as optimal a situation as we can be, but he is producing so effectively. Like we talk about this idea of like serviceable quarterbacks or whatever, like it's a disservice to him to call him that when he's 73% completion percentage, 15 to 4 touchdown to interceptions, and going back to the I'm trying to remember which game it was where there was like a couple interceptions where it was like those were on his guys, like making misplays or a
Windsor game,
drop. Which one?
the Windsor game.
The Windsor game, exactly. And again, it's a good Windsor secondary. And for him to step in the shoes of Elgersma isn't something to be looked past. I think that is a significant thing, especially when it's like, here are the keys to the car. And oh, by the way, like we're expecting you to win the, whatever, the Indy 500, whatever it is. So it's like the fact that this was a ready-made team gives him all that those weapons around him, but also sets the standard of like, look who was doing it before you, and recognize that these windows in U Sports can close really quickly. And we've talked about that maybe next year is where we really see him pop off, when it's more of him settling in and, EJ, maybe at the next level and other guys moving around and such, of in that weird way that it might allow him to be more prolific of like, dude, you got to be the guy now. So I think there's still that potential for him to improve on that, but he's been so consistent throughout the year and at such a high level, almost never missing a beat.
Yeah, completely agree. To me, it's hilarious that we look at this in a similar fashion to how people looked at Ethan Jordan last year, and that, like, yes, he is so incredible and how well he's doing, but do we take out something
Yeah.
away from that because he's got an NFL caliber quarterback throwing to him? To me, I don't have him at number one or number two because he's got these unbelievable receivers. And how many touchdown passes has been a simple crossing route to Ethan Jordan where he makes a guy miss and then takes off? So I completely agree with everything you're saying. He's a phenomenal quarterback and has really been making a lot of great things. And if we had a way to discern if an interception was actually a quarterback's fault or not, he maybe only has one, which is the Denny Ferdinand interception that he just was unbelievable. But still, from that regard, when you're able to just throw up a ball to the best player in the conference and allow him to make some guys miss that should be 15 yards in the air and then it goes for 80 or 70, that puts you back a little bit in my books.
So, Tom, I'm assuming we have the same 2-1 in some order here. I think because we both had Cal at three. Who goes here? How do we do this?
Well, my number one spot, because I'm sure you'll be able to figure out who the number two is, I have Arnold Desjardins
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
Anton
Anton
Ammonroot at number
Ammonroot.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take the lead, my friend. Yeah, I'm the exact
So
same 1, 2, 3 there.
when you look at Anton Ammonroot to start with here, the growth and development of this young man under Mason Nias, as we talked about in the review pod a few episodes ago, has been nothing short of amazing. The way that he has seemingly gotten over this interception bug that he had, and just the idea of being that gunslinger per se, and throwing the ball all over the field and doing whatever he has to now being at 92 completions, 68% completion setting, 12 over 1200 yards passing with 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions is an incredible feat to really see. And when you look at the receiving core that he's got in there with Daniel Weeb and what they're doing, but no Rhett Farva, and he's still able to do everything that he has been doing, it's been nothing short of amazing from this side.
I, I can't really add anything else in there. And I have so many arrows going back and forth of like, at first, I think I had Amon number one and then Arno two. And I just like Arno Desjardins. It was just kind of like I closed my eyes and I just said to myself, who is the best quarterback in U Sports right now? And I just saw Rougeor. That's just all I could see. A, a champion, an MVP, the gold standard of what any program would want to be at the helm of their program. The loss to Montreal to me doesn't fall on his shoulders at all. And frankly, now that I think back to that game, a large part of it really was Pepe doing some really impressive things. He's got the one interception on that. Don't need to rehash that whole conversation of something was miss. There was some mishap in there between him and his receiver, and Elijah Crome made him pay in the biggest way because obviously it wasn't just the interception; it was the pick six. He's the best we have. He's just the best we have. I think there's arguments for like are there other guys that throw a better ball? And I might put Amon there of just saying like he might have the prettiest arm, but like it's kind of like that discussion if you want to jump to like other leagues of like your true number one isn't necessarily always, and not to say Arno doesn't have a great arm of his own right. He absolutely does. I mean, and by the numbers, it's redonkulous as well. Like pretty much toe for toe with what Amandrood is doing out in Saskatchewan. And on like so many fewer attempts, like the efficiency of it all, where we know that when they have guys like Angel Vital and Mathieu Roy running the ball as well, just the limited nature of defenses in that conference, the Pepe argument that you made, and the part with that too is that it's like the great defenses are Laval and Montreal, like no shot at the other three teams in that conference, but it's like we say it's a tough defensive team, defensive conference because the two best teams are sometimes the best defenses across the board in all of U sports, but it starts with those teams. So yeah, what do you want to say about Desjardins?
Yeah, I mean, even in the loss to Montreal, like you mentioned, those are the great teams. 33 for 45, 309 yards and three touchdowns, albeit that's where his one interception is. But that's really where you go, okay, like if there's one team that should be limiting you here, it should be the Montreal Carabins, even if they are not the unbelievable record-setting defenses of old in this league or this time, you know that they are still one of the best defenses, period. And to still put up 300 yards of total offense and three touchdowns, to me, puts him and cements him into that. This is the best quarterback in U Sports right now.
That was a very fun exercise.
It
I'm
was very
certain we'll
fun.
get ripped apart by that, by for that online. I don't know if Dakota's going to want those lists to post them if they're on ink on the internet. That'll make it all the more worse. But let's go from talking quarterbacks, or let's take a moment to should we do our conference MVP predictions? Okay, beautiful. Tom, let me frame it to you like this: how many of your MVPs are names that were already on your list?
Three.
Same here. Who do you got? I feel like we're probably in lockstep on this.
In the RSEQ, I have Arnaud Desjardins. In the Can West, I have Anton Ammonrood. In the AUS, I have Justin Kilhion. And in the OUA, I have Ethan Jordan.
Give me four, number four, give me more. 100%. Um, yeah, I don't
To
really know
me,
what
the
else we want to say. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, the only question mark, the only thing that I was potentially thinking about was in the OUA with how well Ethan Dolby has been running the ball and what he's been really able to do here. But once again, when you start talking about an unbelievable offensive line that's blocking out in front of him, and not to say that Laurier doesn't have that, but to see what Ethan Jordan has been doing with catching a ball, making something work, and you're off to the races here. I just think that he is showcasing why he is the best player in the OUA and potentially in Canada here. And while it was close, I'm still going with Ethan Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, nothing really more I'm going to add on to that one. I was like in my mind trying to like mind meld the Silas Fagnon case and just thinking of it's just not going to work out. Him missing that game against Bishops is, I think they play again in the regular season, and I'm so curious to see how it fares in that one. Yeah, let's move into our top 10. Should we start by reading off the U Sports top 10, or do we save that for when we do the week 6 preview? What do you want to do here?
No, I will. I can read off the U Sports top 10
Okay.
because there might be some similarities here, might be whatever else, but I feel like it be, especially because it launched at time of recording, we might as well just go right through it. So at number 10, the Ottawa Gee-Gees. At number 9, we have the St. Mary's Huskies. At number 8, the Queen's Golden Gales. Number 7 is the Bishop Gators. At 6, the Regina Rams. Number 5 has the Saskatchewan Huskies. At number 4, the Montreal Carabins. At number 3, the Laval Rouge et Or. At number 2, the Western Mustangs. And at number 1, the Laurier Golden Hawks.
Tom, how many of those top 10 teams are on your top 10 list?
I have 9 of these top tens of the teams I just listed on my list.
Okay, I have 8.
There we go.
Let's start at 10. Would you like me to rip the band-aid off first?
Might as well.
Okay, this is where it gets really unhinged. And I got to get myself some X-Men gear. I'm putting Saint FX in there.
So did I.
Yeah, there we go, brother. Oh, that peaked super big on the mics. My apologies, folks. I hope your volume was down there a little bit. I mean, we just said it, right? Like the case for Silas is just it's too hard to say without seeing him go up against Bishops for this year. Quail so consistently what he's been doing. It's just when we go back to the MVP of it all well and good. St. FX fully healthy to me. They shown they could beat St. Mary's, and I don't think that's inevitable. Like St. Mary's clearly gave them a good game in that one. Um, Invoking a little bit of the transient property, which can get you into trouble in terms of when team A beats B and B beats C beats A, so on and so forth. Yeah, to me, Saint affects this offense. Bit of team of destiny feel there of like, kind of one last ride for a lot of these guys. Love the weapons. They can run the ball. They can obviously pass it. Coach Waterman, one of the best we have here. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything onto that.
Yeah, with all of the pieces as they're working together, it's really impressive. And even on the defensive side, Owen Wattrich, I believe he plays linebacker for them right now, leading U Sports in tackles per game at 9.3, 37 total tackles on the year so far, a sack and two tackles for loss in that as well. Having a guy and having a defense that's starting to come up and start to match what we see in the AUS. And when you think of the AUS and defense, right now you're thinking of St. Mary's. But if Saint FX can continue on this path and really building that up, man, there's no reason why they shouldn't be fighting for Loney Bowl championships this year.
And by the numbers, they're 11th on in U Sports right now. So not a terrible, like not the hottest of hot takes right there. I think my takes get a little bit hotter as we get towards the top of the list. Tom, who do you have at 9?
At number 9, I have the Bishop Gators.
Not on my list.
I figured that that might be the case. I still have to give the edge to the Bishop Gators in this one. Yes, they beat a team in Saint FX that didn't have Silas Fagnon, and yes, they did get the brakes beat off them by St. Mary's not too long ago here. But to me, that more so speaks to the outstanding defense that St. Mary's has rather than the lack of that Bishops has. I still think that Justin Quirion being the my pick for the favorite of the AUS MVP, the rest of that team and how they're really coming together, and a large part of that team that's returning from last year's Loney Bowl championship. I just don't think you can count out the Bishop Gators as it stands right now. So I have them at my number 9.
I just think like with Quillion being as good as he is, and then you have with the running back O'Shea, um,
Yes.
I'm forgetting his full name off the top of my head. Hosang.
I'm saying.
Hosang as well. So the part you're saying about that loss to St. Mary's being so much more a product of that defense, then I just go back to this whole thing of being like, but then if St. FX can beat that St. Mary's defense, I don't know. I just couldn't put them ahead of, to me. I was like, I can only have one of these teams in here right now. And it's a bit of recency bias, I suppose, but it's a top 10 list based on what we have just seen, though I've obviously railed against sometimes the recency bias we see of what one game does to another and who we just think are the best teams. So you have Bishops at number 9. Uh, I think much like my growing Saint FX fandom, this is also a bit of reflected in here. My growing Bisons fandom, I'm slotting Manitoba in at number 9, who
Mm.
by the numbers of what on the U Sports ranking would be in at 13 right now. It's just we said it already in talking about and me making the case for Jackson Jaczynski that this is a team that can beat anybody, has a really strong rushing attack that I think will be major for them as they get into the colder months. What Jaczynski can do in terms of like him and Braden Stubbs with that rushing attack, I think is so special. And it's just like Can West is just too good for me to, not have a bit more representation in this. And I think there's some really interesting arguments you can make. Calgary, though, as we said, they're kind of just weird. Yeah, they can kind of give everyone a fight. Them going up against Saskatchewan's going to be interesting to see this weekend. But as we said, they will be terribly surprised if they pick up the win. Well, a bit, but like you could see it happening. We've seen the pieces in place. If they lose by 50, won't be surprised there either. So not going to put them in. UBC, same thing. That's kind of that Jekyll and Hyde tier, whatever. I just need to have another Can West team in here, and it's Manitoba for me. Tom, were they on your list?
They are not on my list.
Okay, who did
Uh,
you have at number 9?
at number nine, I have the Bishop Gators, like we
Oh,
had mentioned here.
my bad.
For the Manitoba Bisons, for myself here, yes, they just recently picked up a win against the Saskatchewan Huskies here. And yes, they look really impressive in their win against the University of Alberta. But to me, watching them in those first two games against Calgary and then the first game against UBC and really not seeing a ton of production from this side. Like you're looking at, man, Tuchinski and Braden Stubbs, they were damn near unstoppable last year. And, rightfully so when you're looking at that. But even here, I mean, Jackson Tuchinski, he goes 17 for 25, 207 yards, no touchdowns, and two picks against a UBC Thunderbird team that has assuredly kind of struggled in their identity going into the later part of this season. And Drew Viotto and Derek Engel both get into this game, and we start to see a lot of really good things from them. Braden Stubbs, well, yes, going off for 92 yards, doesn't get into the end zone at all here. So I I'm still very optimistic about where this Manitoba team could be, but to me, I have not seen enough from them to put them in my top 10.
Totally fair. I think then in snake order fashion, I have to go up to my number 8. Do I have them too low? Ottawa Gigi's.
Same
Number 8.
here.
Same there. Go
Mhm.
ahead, my friend. Ottawa at number 8. Take the lead on this.
Well, you look at how impressive this Ottawa GG's team really has looked, especially over the past few weeks. And while, yes, they haven't been able to beat the two top teams of the OUA and Laurier and Western, they came pretty damn close this last week. Only falling to Laurier by 3 points, and that defense holding them scoreless in the second half. And there's a lot of things to really like here, but that offense did put up 30 points in one half of football there. And that defense did come up with a few key stops in this regard here. So to me, I still think the world of this GG's team, and I think they deserve to be higher than 10, like USports has them, but I'm not quite ready to crown them anything more than that because still need to see them actually get out of that prove it tier.
Do you by chance also have Queens at 7?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, then we'll just pick it up from there. Because again, I like what you said about Ottawa, and I'll just keep repeating this piece on how much it stinks that it's unlikely for us to see these two teams duke it out with one another. The thing that I'll be interested to see with Queens is that I don't want to call it a softer end to their schedule. I mean, they still have to go to Guelph on homecoming, which I'm not saying because I think at this point Guelph is really in, alignment with what Queens is doing right now, but maybe a bit of magic of homecoming, maybe it's similar to, whether it was the UBC homecoming miracle against Calgary. You're at the 55 Bowl. I won't call it a miracle. I don't want to besmirch what your Marauders did, but you add a little bit into that. They have to play Windsor, but at home. So it's going to be interesting to see where this is a team that starting with York next week. We don't have an update as far as I know about Justin Pace, but frankly I don't think that's going to be a big issue for them in that game. Where I think they're still going to have some major, major offensive output games, and then the question is still how much of that is truly reflective of what they can do against the very best teams. And they've scored against the very best teams, but it'll be interesting to kind of see where I think as we Queens towards the tail end, having gotten that Laurier and Western game out of the way already, and having been very formidable in both of them without playing Ottawa, and you can say similar things about Ottawa, but with the Panda game, that's always just like a weird one that I'm certainly way more bullish on Ottawa, but it's still just the nature of that one. So Queens to me, definitely in the 7 slot right now. That defense is all country. That offense is looking super strong, and I just think that they'll only be going higher and higher throughout this year. Whether that truly reflects how good they are, again, to be seen because they're still in that prove it tier. Um, Tom, who do you have at number 6?
At number 6, I have the Regina Rams.
Yes, same.
When you look at this Regina team in a totality, you have to see how incredible that is. Yes, I just went through my rationale behind not having Noah Peltier in the top 10, but he's still being a serviceable quarterback in this. And Nicholas Sirleaf and Renzel Arenaza and what they've been able to do in that passing game has truly been incredible here. While they did get limited, certainly in that Saskatchewan game, I think that the offense still has a lot of potential here. And what Christian Katende and Marshall Erickson both have the potential of doing It's no doubt why these guys are there. And even yet, somehow, some way, there's another Sombach brother in that defensive secondary for them. I think there's like still three on the team, which is wild to me, despite Jackson Sombach graduating, and who was one of, if not the best, boundary corners in Delani Robinson also going off. To see the growth and the depth of this defense and to see, yes, two outstanding defensive backs that are now gone from our defense, but we really haven't missed a beat this entire year. This is just looks like a total team to me, if for a couple of question marks at that quarterback position, but I like these Regina Rams a lot.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm going to add into that one. That feels right. It's where they're in the sixth slot for the U Sports top 10. Yeah, I'm not going to add too much into there. Tom, this is where I think it goes a bit off the rails here. My number 5 pick are the Western Mustangs.
Ooh.
And this is tough because obviously their offense has been incredible this year. But to me, when we look at these top 5 teams now, and I'll extend it top 6 to kind of add Regina in to not make it sort of an assumption that that Sask, who obviously is yet to be revealed on either of our lists, but clearly is still out there, is going to be the Hardy Cup winner. I don't mean to assume that. But we're certainly in the territory now where we're thinking about possible UTEC, Mitchell Bowl, and Vanier Cup matchups. And I just think about looking at teams ahead of Western right now. I mean, to begin with, I still give Laurier the nod from the standpoint of just like they've been spotless on the year. They beat them twice last year. Until we see what happens in week 9, would I be surprised for Western to win that game? No. I don't know where I'm going at this point. Still need more information to be able to, a couple more weeks till we get there. But I'm going to give Laurier the nod. I think about those two teams out of the RSEQ. And the thing for me is that defensively, we talk about how great they are defensively. And in terms of shutting down the run, it's what they do better than literally anyone else. I don't know if I still have it up here on one of my screens, but I think we were talking earlier. Laval's limiting teams rushing to 80 yards per game. Now, part of that is it a function of that the difference in how the leagues are played. As we always say, the OUA is a heavier rushing league than RSCQ and Can West a little bit. Certainly that's going to play into a factor, but we know who those guys are in the front 7 for Laval, if not by name, just because we're still getting more familiar. As we talked about, coming off that Vanier Cup win, returning so many of those. I just think about with both them and Montreal, like Montreal still having so many of those like key pieces that made that 23 Vanier team so special, where I just think I'm going to give Laurier the nod ahead of them. I want to have Laval and Montreal ahead, even though obviously both of them have a loss so far in the season. Laval's coming to Montreal, Montreal with McGill. Don't love that. But I just think about in terms of the matchup, Western has reverted back to that, just like, not that they ever were anything but just so truly ground and pound offense. And until we start to see that passing game develop a little bit more, we know Evan's been hurt this year. I don't want to sort of like take that, like I want to take that into consideration, but they're coming off the bye. But other than that, there's not really much time to be getting more healthy right now. I just think that with how good those rush defenses are, I think that's where I put them. And then I don't know. I'm loving Sask this year so much that I just still had to have them a bit ahead of Western, which is how I just ended up with Western at 5.
Well, do you want to go through your top five then, since you kind of talked about the rationale between everything here?
I'll just rhyme them off. Okay.
Yeah.
Western, Montreal, Sask, Laval, Laurier. And I'll be honest, Laurier over Laval was not a certainty either. But yeah, that's my top 5 there.
So my top five, I have Montreal at number five. To be honest with you, exactly like you were kind of talking about here. Yes, there's that a lot of pieces from that 23 Vanier. Yes, there's a lot of really impressive pieces here. But that loss to McGill to me shakes my confidence just a little bit here. And still they're still a top five team, but they are at that number five spot for all of those reasons. At the number 4 spot, I have the Western Mustangs. Exactly like you mentioned, they are a ground and pound team. I still have confidence in that passing game. I know that Seth Robertson and Braden Masseri are phenomenal receivers, and I know that Evan Hillock while he hasn't had the best showing so far, like we talked about previously, a lot of those earlier mistakes in the beginning part of the season were actually due to his receivers, not because of him running in incorrect routes or whatever else. So I know that if there's a real need to pass the ball, I have confidence that this passing attack will get better and better. It's just right now when Ethan Dolby's running for like 300 yards plus on the ground a game, why do you need to pass the ball? So I have them on that number 4 spot. And number 3, I have Saskatchewan. Like you mentioned, number 2, Laval, and number 1, Laurier. While yes, that Laval squad, they returned a whole lot of the guys that they had from last year, and they won a Vanier Cup in that same regard. And Laurier lost their star quarterback. I still think I give the edge to these Laurier Golden Hawks just because I hesitate to word it like this because I don't want to say that Laurie got better because Taylor left, but I think you're accentuating really a whole lot more of the quarterback or sorry, the receivers in this offense by Cal Withers still being a great quarterback himself, but giving his receivers chances to make plays on the ball rather than Taylor oftentimes being like, no, I don't want to throw the simple crossing route. I want to throw the 30-yard corner route where it's in the back pocket of a receiver where nobody else can kind of touch it, which damn near no other quarterback can kind of throw. So allowing a receiving core that is the top in the nation to really show their stuff and to continue to get better and better. That's why I have Laurier above Laval.
Yeah, no, again, I still have them ranked 1 and 2, like you do. Like well, actually, was that what the USports one was? No, they have Western at number 2, right? Yeah,
Yeah, Western at
exactly.
2.
We were talking about earlier, something just didn't feel right with that, with these RCQ teams lurking. It's yeah, not too much I'm going to add on to that. Montreal and Western, yeah, flip flopping there. Um, yeah, I'm not mad at the take one way or the other, but yeah, what a fun exercise, Tom. Remind me, are we going to go our at above and below? I feel like we've put out a pretty good amount of content here. I don't know if we need to sneak anything else in there. Okay.
No,
Um, well, Tom, final thoughts, I suppose, or any other just like notes as we're here at the midway point of teams you're really excited to see going into the second half of the season, things you're really looking for out of individuals, clubs, and just general storylines that you're looking forward to sort of following along as we march into the latter part of our season.
I think this kind of showcases what the a lot of other teams and the voters and the ELO system all kind of showcase as well is that some noise in the bottom 5, but a lot of people have the exact same top 5. It's just kind of where you're putting them here. To me, the team that can most kind of increase or the team that I'm most looking at as, are they going to jump up is the Saskatchewan Huskies. I mean, with how well they have been playing recently, I mean, we haven't really talked all that much about Seth Hundeby, who is arguably one of the best linebackers out there, right up there. I put him up there with Justin Pace with how well he can play that position. And an offense that seemingly continues to just get better and better as things go on here. I really think that the Huskies, this is their year to get back into form and kind of poetically speaking that the next time that Saskatchewan is in the conversation to potentially win a Hardy Cup, I know we're a few weeks away, but in that same conversation is when Mason Nias returns back home to help lead them to another one there. So this is kind of the feeling that I'm getting here. I love what that offense really looks like. So I'm interested to see how high up they can really go and where they're going to finish in this one, albeit you got to first get out of the Can West, and that is much easier said than done.
Yeah, and I feel like I have similar feelings just with the AUS in general of just the way you describe the bottom 5 in the top 10. Can West as well was so much still to be discovered and uncovered where I want to see how the chips fall in the AUS. And I don't know if I said it on the week 5 review. I'll say it now. As far as the OUA is concerned, Laurier, Western, Queens, Ottawa, the rest, it's all just fighting for the scraps of my attention at this point. There's still part of me that's kind of interested to see like Windsor. Because I think we were talking about how them and Mac, we were playing around with completely redoing our tiers the midpoint season, and there was some similarity between a team in Windsor and Mac of like just show the things you need to show to demonstrate that next year you can really hit the ground running because both clubs I think are I'm curious if they're both Max certainly overperforming from where we thought they were going to be, and Windsor I think has been showing a lot of positive things, though we still have questions to behold. Um, what an exciting finish to the season. I think it's funny how we went from a year of just the amount of parity there was, and all the promise of in the OUAL league where it felt like it was open season. Anyone could beat anyone darn near, to I'm at that point now where I'm like, no, I would just want to see the real hitters go after each other. I want to see these big dogs take on the perennial champs. I want to see these teams that are in these conference championships and playing for national titles. This is where my focus is. I feel like the first half of the season, it's kind of seeing who's going to rise above, who's going to establish themselves. And to no surprise, they are the teams that we were talking about. Tom, just sort of final thoughts on this whole exercise or anything in general before we call it a wrap.
Yeah, the only other thing that I guess I could kind of say here is that I do stand behind the teams that I have, but again, I'm being more and more of a CanWest convert. I think there's certainly a conversation to have more CanWest teams in this top 10 list, and um, this is just this has been easily one of the more fun podcasts that we have done, and just kind of deep diving where we're thinking and the rationale behind all of this stuff. So I had a ton of fun doing this. Hopefully everybody listening doesn't think that we're both nuts for the takes that we have, and I'm sure we'll get a whole lot of comments, especially if these are posted on Instagram. But this was still a ton of fun. It's always fun talking U Sports football with you, my man.
1000% Tom. Outstanding job by you as always. I guess at time of recording or at time of this coming out, we're going to be doing another podcast about the week 6 preview. We're officially over the hill of the OUA and U Sports season, which obviously brings a tear to our eyes. But as I was alluding to, is now where we get to see these championship caliber teams refine their game and prepare for what I think will be such an outstanding playoff run as we determine and we learn who our conference champions will be and who will be fighting for U Sports supremacy in Regina in about 3 months to come. But that's a long ways away. Week 6 comes first, so we'll be here setting that up for you right here at the 55.